Well, there we go. The POP Baking Club, Pâte Choux, starts right now at noon Eastern Standard Time. It is Sunday. Welcome to the POP, the Practice of Pastry Baking Club. This is a club where there is no fee. It is free. The only thing you need to know about Baking Club is that you need to tell people about it. So I love all of you being here, and today we are working on the second half of the week, part 2, which is our Pâte Choux week. Pâte Choux is a dough that you cook part of it and then beat eggs into it, refrigerate it overnight, pipe it onto a baking tray, and then you put it in the oven. You know what Pâte Choux is if you've ever had a cream puff, a beignet, a churro, any kind of dough that is pipeable, can be fried, baked, boiled. You can make French gnocchi. So it's a really flexible and a nice dough that you can do a lot of things with. And one of the things I like about it is that it's savory and it can be sweet. So today I have a bunch of things to show you, and I'm going to get started right away. That way the flow can keep moving. Seriously, I think that you guys are getting the experience of what it's like to be in a live pastry class, which I think is rare air. There are a lot of people who get in touch with me who don't live near a pastry school, don't have the money to go to one, or don't have the time. And I am sharing with you what I would teach in real life. And I think that's extraordinary, because when I first started in class, when I went back to school and I got a certificate and a degree in baking and pastry arts, just being in the room and being able to sit there and go through chef demos and ask questions and then watch things being made was, for me, life-changing. So, and if you know me, you know that that is how I feel. The first rule of Fight Club is that you can't talk about it. But that's why somebody suggested the first rule of this club is that you need to tell everybody you know about it. It's always super positive here, and I love keeping a positive environment. I'd rather encourage people that they can think differently and do things in a new way. And what I ask is that when you come here, instead of thinking about what you already know, because when I went to pastry school, I could have shown up and said, I have 25 years in the industry. I don't really need to hear any of this, but I showed up a blank canvas. I showed up with a learning mindset. And I'm not saying anything I'm telling you you have to do. What I'm saying is I'm just a different perspective, and if you can take it in, you might make your baking and understanding kind of move forward, which is what I want you to do. I don't want you clinging to recipes. I don't want you thinking that one person's recipe is better than another. I want you to think like a professional, which is basically to think like an ingredient and to look at every recipe from the ingredients point of view. How does it work in that recipe? How do they work together? And if you were to change one thing, how would it impact the whole thing? Make connections. That is what learning and baking is all about. And that is what I share with you. It's more of a point of view than it is how to do things. It's why. And I think that's really cool. So I'm going to get rid of my sweater. I'm going to do a quick fit check, and then we are going to get started, because I have been baking. It looks great here. I've got so much stuff to work on. Right, Lou? Okay. So first of all, my fit check is that I have clothes on that are not dangerous in the kitchen. I have short sleeves, and I have clogs on that are good for the kitchen, and they're non-slip. If I need to kick a shoe off for safety, my clogs will come off really fast. I'm going to pull my hair back, and I have no nail polish, very short nails, and no jewelry. No jewelry. These are actually, I'm taking my sanitation exam on Tuesday, and I need to pass at a 93 or higher. So anyway, I'm taking my sanitation exam on Tuesday. In order to be a proctor, which means you can give the test, and a teacher, you have to get a 93 or higher. So I can pass the test. It's basically, I forget what it even is, like a 73, which is I can do, but there's always that extra pressure to do a little bit better. So I'm going to pull my hair back. I'll be right back. I'm going to get a clean apron on, wash my hands, and get all set up. Okay? Be right back. Please don't go away. I always say this is not a glamorous job. I used to have students who wanted to be cute, and I would say, the time to be cute is when we're all done with the food. We'd all let our hair down at the end, but I don't like pulling my hair up in the kitchen. I think that's gross. I don't need the hair all over the kitchen. So I go in the other room, I'm gonna wash my hands. And none of this food is going to anybody. Some of this I will be sharing with friends, but I wash my hands because it's a habit. And the practice of pastry is about building good habits and good practices. So then I have a clean apron. And an apron is to keep your clothes clean. It's not to be used to wipe your hands on. So it is kind of a symbol of how you work. And if you have a really dirty apron, it says a lot about your habits. And if your habits are dirty and messy, and your apron's dirty and dingy and stained and messy, it's not a good sign. Let's see, do we need the light? Here's what I have. This is what we are going to do today. This is a choux. This is all made out of pâte choux, and I did all of this on Wednesday. So this is the pâte choux made into just a puff. I did poke a hole in it. And these are the little éclairs. And these are the Gougères. Nice, shiny. These have cheese in them, so they get a little bit butter fat, kind of caramelized. And let's see. This is the Paris-Brest. And I cut these yesterday, so they're all dry. But this is where you pipe a round circle, and I have on here sucre grand, the large Swedish pearl sugar, and then I sliced it horizontally. And here you can see how hollow it is inside. Isn't that cool? So I have fresh ones, and I just baked off some frozen stuff this morning. So this is the profiterole, and if you recall, I put a streusel, like a little cookie on top before I baked it. And when you slice it in half, it's open. Look at how this works. Isn't that great? So this is where you put a little ice cream in here and make it into a profiterole. So what I'm going to do today is take all of these that I just baked. They're all fresh. Look at these. I made these a little bit bigger. Gorge. I mean, oh my gosh. And these are the Éclairs. I'm going to put them all on one tray so you can watch me do that. And these are the profiteroles. Look at how gorge. And that crackling crust. Ugh. I mean, to think that one dough can do this many things, and then I just baked the Gougères. Let me see if they're too hot to handle. Nope, they look okay. So I just baked these. These are the Gougères. Look at how gorgeous. That shiny, shiny crust is from the egg wash. And the cheese and the pepper, you can see all the savoriness. So we are going to play with so many flavorings. So this is sort of my visual aid for the different shapes that I piped and the flavors. Plain, crackling crust, a little sweet, a little crunchy, and then the cheese. And in the dough, all I added extra was pepper and Gruyère. And I want to take the pressure off of all of you, okay? There might be people out there saying, oh, hers aren't that great, they're not even, they're not perfect. I know. I don't bake pâte choux every single day, and I don't pipe them every single day. And if I did, like I used to, I would pipe 1,000 of these in one morning, no problem, very quickly. So they all look the same. But when you do it every now and then, who cares? Like if it's like you want them to taste good and they look beautiful. So I'm happy with these, but these are like my sample. Let me go put them over here. So then I want to take these and put these on a tray. So I have a full sheet tray that I'm going to put these on just for ease of use. And I'm going to put them all on here. This one is a little soggy. Now you can let these dry on the tray, or you can put them on a cooling rack, and with this I probably should have. All right, so my Éclairs I'm going to put together. I'll just stack them near each other. And there we go. And sometimes I think to myself, is this hot? It's not hot. These are my profiteroles. Put these here. So this is my choux, and a couple of them had the Swedish pearl sugar on it, but most of them did not, and this is what they look like. Okay, and they're very lightweight. They have a nice brown color on the bottom, but the thing about choux paste is when you bake it, the structure of the recipe and the steam that lives inside, the water that lives inside the ingredients, steams. So you bake these at a high heat, 375, until they start to take on color and puff. And then you turn down the oven and you dry them out. And then they end up with a hollow inside. So these are all the ones we're going to play with today. And then I have one more thing. These are kind of warm. These are my Gougères. And a Gougère is a cream puff with a little bit of savory ingredients in it. So I'm going to put it here. And then I'll tell you what's going in these because it's so exciting. I love savory pastry, and I think that if you can add anything that's a little alternative, and you have more variety, like that's really amazing. Okay, so there we are. Look at that, isn't that pretty? We're gonna slide, there we go. Okay, so here's what we have. The Paris-Brest, I'm going to take a French buttercream that I made, half and half with pastry cream. I'm gonna mix that together. I'm gonna slice this horizontally, pipe pretty in there, and top it. And then I'll show you how I plate it. The profiterole, I'm going to cut open. I'm going to put ice cream inside with a little caramel sauce on top. The Éclair, I'm going to poke holes in the bottom and fill it with a cremeux. I made a vanilla cremeux, which is a, I see your question about the disher. A cremeux is stabilized with gelatin. And then the cream puff, I have a bunch of things to put in here, and I wrote down, I have the pastry cream, French buttercream, and cremeux, and a chantilly. I made a chantilly cream. And then for the Gougères, I made a goat cheese filling. And it looks like this, and it's already in the pastry bag because it's soft. And I just paddled this on the bowl, and I added lemon juice, lemon zest, Italian parsley, scallions that I chopped up fine, so hopefully it'll fit through the end of the tip, and salt and pepper. So this is really tasty. I don't recommend scooping pâte choux when you bake it. It is incredibly sticky. I'm not even sure how you will do it. And part of the piping is that when you pipe it, you're moving upward, and you need the dough to be moving that way so that when it puffs, it continues its journey. Because you've already started it on a journey while you're piping it and releasing it, and you're not going to tamp it down or smush it down. You want it to go up. So if you scoop it, you can try it. I just don't think it's going to work because that dough is going to be so sticky. I mean, so sticky. It's already so sticky. So what should we start with? Because I can fill anything. I have the chantilly, the French buttercream I've brought to a nice consistency. And when we're ready for the profiterole, I'm going to put that into my ice cream into the refrigerator for 10 minutes. That'll help temper it. That's the best way to serve ice cream. That's how it should be done in restaurants. You want me to make a Paris-Brest? Okay, let's do the Paris-Brest first. I'm going to get my cutting board. Okay, so a Paris-Brest is pâte choux that has been piped in a circle, and it represents a bicycle wheel. The race between Paris and Brest in France was celebrated with this commemorative pastry, and it is filled traditionally with a mixture of pastry cream, French buttercream, and praline. If you don't know what praline paste is, it is hazelnuts that have been caramelized, and I've done a video on this, and they can either roast the hazelnuts and then take sugar and combine them and then add other things to it, or when you roast really slowly in caramelized sugar the nuts, they're gorgeous, and then you grind that up and add other things to it. Like you can add chocolate. That's basically what gianduja is, and gianduja is Nutella. So these things all like live sort of in the same family. I don't have praline paste, but praline paste can be unsweetened. It can be 50-50 sweet, but it is a roasted hazelnut flavor that has been sweetened. But I don't have that, so I'm just going to do the French buttercream and the pastry cream. I also made videos of the pastry cream, and I'm going to be posting more about the French buttercream and things like that. So this is going to go here, and so this is my French buttercream, and I'm going to get a scale and a deli cup and my pastry cream. And I'm going to do half and half, and I'm going to stir it up. Now my pastry cream I made the other day, and this morning I took a hand blender and I homogenized it a little bit better to make it emulsify a little better. I will put this here and show you how I scale things. So my buttercream sensitive, as all buttercream is, that's pretty soft. This is my buttercream. Do you see this is a French buttercream? Do you see how yellow it is? That's because it's made with whole egg and egg yolk. And that is going to make a much richer buttercream than an Italian or a Swiss. And the only real rule about it is that kind of means, you know, it's not as good as a topping or a covering, but it is excellent as a filling. I'm going to do 200 grams. Okay, put this back over here. And then I'll do 200 grams of the pastry cream. So that's 400 total, and then I'll mix it up and I will show you what I do. And I'm going to use a French tip. Oops. All right, there we go. I'm going to put this back in the fridge until I'm ready to use it. Of course, now it's a mess. Doo-doo-doo. Okay. If your pastry cream has gotten runny or there's water seeping from it, it's not a strong emulsion. And so that's why I keep it in the refrigerator to keep it together. Woohoo! I am on Substack and YouTube, and if you miss any of my videos or lives on TikTok, they live on YouTube, so you can catch up. You don't have to be. Now actually I should be putting this into the mixer, but we're just gonna do this. It's gonna be a little lumpy, but I would do this on the paddle. Get a nice emulsion, and I would paddle the buttercream and then slowly add the pastry cream. But this is getting nice and thick, which is gonna be nice to pipe. And this is going to be on a French star tip, which I will show you what that looks like. Okay, this is my set of star tips. My daughter she moved to New York 2 years ago, and she's doing it all on her own, and she's amazing. She's just, it's a joy to watch her grow, and, whoo, okay. I think I might want that one later. So when I'm picking a tip, I don't look at the numbers. I put them like this, and I look at what size I want, because people have asked me, how do you pick them out? And that's kind of how I do it. So you just watch me kind of make my decision. Here's my lovely Thermohauser knife, which I love and I recommend, but Thermohauser, and it's a cake knife with a pointed end. And you are going to want to take your knife, which is serrated, and this is very thin, which I like. And I am going to cut this Paris-Brest across, okay? And then I will show you. And on here, I placed almonds and some sucre grande, and the almonds toasted and got nice and brown. And this is hollow, okay? I probably could have baked it just a little bit longer. I don't have the best oven in this place that I rent. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in a bag. I buy rolls of pastry bags to make my life a little bit easier. Get some scissors, and I will show you the tip that I am using. This is a French star tip. See how it's a little bit different than this guy? This one's a pointed open star tip, and this is a French star tip. So it's just gonna make a really pretty shape. So I'm gonna put this in to the bag, toward the bottom, and I twist it just to hold it, and I take my scissor and I pull off the plastic. Now this plastic can become a physical hazard. So you can either get in the habit of putting it in your pocket, which I do, or in the garbage, but you have to get it away from the food so it doesn't get back into the food. So I'm going to take this, which has a terrible emulsion. This should go on the paddle and it'll be really smooth. But if I do everything today, we won't get anywhere. So I am going to hold this bag like that. I'm going to take, this is a mixture, half French buttercream, which is based in yolks and whole eggs. Very, very rich and delicious. And pastry cream, which I made and did a video on if you're interested in learning how to make it. Okay, let's scrape this all down. And I'm gonna get a plate. Give me one sec. But here are the plates I can use. I think I will use a square plate. I love round on a square. And you could put it on a larger plate for like a dessert, but I think that if you wanted to serve this as like a little tea, it could be picked up. But if you're doing it with a lot of berries or you're going to be eating it with a fork or anything, you might want a larger plate. But I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to take my combination of buttercream and pastry cream. Whoop. And I can either make a design, make loops, or I can make stars. So I think I'm going to do this. Can you guys see? Make it nice and off to the edges because you want to see what this looks like from the side when we put the top on. Now you can make these as elaborate as you want. You could add piped whipped, chantilly cream, whipped cream, berries. You can go crazy. What I will do is put this on top, and it looks pretty like that. And then I will show you some other ways to make it look nice. And one of them is with a non-melting sugar or sucre neige, which is like snow sugar. And this does not melt. Now I could probably put 10x or powdered sugar on here and it'd be fine, but this will not melt at all. Like I'm guaranteed it's not gonna melt, so I'd prefer to go that route. None of this is easy to make in terminology for other things. So this isn't exactly like 10x, so you can totally use powdered sugar. I'm just telling you that there are these options out there for you. And the way that you want to control the dusting and maybe I should move this closer. One of the ways that you can control how much goes on here is by using a little sieve and tapping it very lightly. And this comes through much faster than just regular 10x, but it won't melt. If you've ever put 10x on something and it disappeared, it's kind of a bummer. But there you go. And then you have a nice light dusting on the plate and on here. Now, if you wanted to add color, you could color the buttercream. I could add raspberry to it, and in fact, maybe I will. That might be a nice thing to do. I have a little raspberry puree here. Maybe I'll do it this way. Oh, I think that it would be wonderful in a coffee shop, and the fact that you can make this all in advance and freeze it and bake it in the morning. Now, the only thing you need to know is these need to be prepared less than an hour before you serve them. So, you can make the pastry and then refresh it, but you have to fill it an hour or less. So I've worked in bakeries where much of this stays in the cooler, or I'm sorry, much of this stays, maybe you only put out 5 at a time in your cold case, and that way you can keep things from getting soggy, and you'll begin to keep track and understand how many you can go through in a day. But you do have to take that into account, but I think it's worth doing it. All right, so this does not look like it is very well homogenized, but I'm going to show you what the color would look like on another one. So I'm going to use the same bag that I already used, and I'm going to fill it with this lumpy, chunky stuff here, which has gotten a lot softer. So if you are going to do any of these things, you want to think about what flavors are you going to use, and if you make your pâte à choux dough, before you make it, you can take any flavor you like and you can steep it into the milk. And when you steep it into the milk, you can then have these products that are multi-flavored. So I could have let's see, what flavor would be good? An Earl Grey pâte à choux with a raspberry, French buttercream or chantilly on the top. Endless possibilities. So I'll do one more little square plate, and look at how the almonds stay in the center. And again, I should have baked these a little bit longer. So this is a little pink, and I will show you a different way of piping. Oops. You can take this, first of all, and get rid of that stuff. And you can swirl, because the goal is to have the exterior look pretty. Doesn't matter what it looks like from the top. What looks good is going to be the side. So that is what the side would look like. And then you can take some berries. I have some blackberries here. And you could just say, oh, I'm just going to put one in the center or something like that. Or you could slice them in half and put them on top kind of pretty. Or people can serve themselves if you're doing a pretty tea. Okay. And then I will add, oops, a little bit of the sucre neige to the top. There we go. And the reason I'm using sucre neige is a really good example is on these berries. These berries have a lot of moisture in them, and this is not going to melt. So these are very pretty. Oh, one of my berries fell in. Okay, so these are my Paris-Brest. Half pastry cream, half French buttercream. I don't wash raspberries or blackberries. I do wash blueberries. And I've read a lot about it and the way that they harvest them. And I go through every single one and pick the good ones. But even when I eat them, I don't rinse them. It adds, especially with raspberries, way too much moisture. Unless you're going to be cooking them or something. But as far as I've read, and I buy organic, but even if I didn't, I just don't. All right, so there's my Paris-Brest. Beautiful. Love, love. And I've got my plate, my little platter here. Let's take a look at where we are. Let me clean up my cutting board. We'll do the Gougère right now. And then we will do the Profiteroles. So I'm going to put the ice cream in the refrigerator so that it can temper. I'm going to do that right now. And I have this local brand. It's a small batch place, the Tres Leches. And it's got cream cheese, ice cream soaked, vanilla cookies with dulce de leche swirl. So anyway, I thought it'd be fun to have a little caramel because I'm going to be putting my homemade caramel sauce on top. So I'm going to put this in the fridge for 10 minutes. A Gougère is a puff, but it's savory. And I made this with pepper, Gruyère cheese, which melts, has got like a low melting point, and salt, pepper. And then I made a filling. Oh, and you know what I forgot to tell you I added? To the filling, a dash of Tabasco, just to brighten it up. But lemon zest, a little lemon juice, goat cheese, parsley, scallions, all chopped really small so I can get it out this hole. What I like about a Gougère is serving it a couple on the side of a salad. So if you run a little cafe or have a little business. And before I do this, I want to show you what the inside of these things look like. And this is how I store my pastry bags so that they stay clean. You just twist it, it goes upside down and into a deli cup. You can actually put this down, put the lid on and store it this way in the refrigerator and then you're ready to go. But I let my cheese come to room temp so I can pipe it. But let me show you what a cream puff and a Gougère looks like on the inside. I think that would be really helpful. I want to choose a good one. Okay, so this one I'm going to slice so you can see the beautiful structure. And this is very similar to cutting a croissant in half and looking at the honeycomb structure. So you should have a very nice open structure. And I think these look really nice. You can almost see through them. The daylight comes through. So how do you get the cream or the buttercream inside? It's really quite simple. So when you bake these, first you puff them and they have to get all the way to their largest possibility. And doing an egg wash keeps the dough moist longer, so it expands longer. Because anything that's dry is not going to have flexibility. So the longer it stays, thank you, the longer it stays moist, the larger it's going to get. So this has got a lot of nice volume. Because of the structure, so your leavener is steam. As soon as the water that's in the butter and the eggs and the milk and the water that you add, you get steam. It gets really wet, so once you get it puffed up and it starts to take on a little bit of brown, you want to turn the oven down and then dry it out. And as it dries out, these parts will get firm, okay? And if they don't, when you pull this out of the oven, this structure that's tall will collapse, okay? So when you're making the dough, you have to get the right amount of moisture. When you bake it, you have to create the right amount of steam, and then you have to bake off and dry out the right amount of moisture. That's all really important. And then when you go adding a filling to it, you're adding moisture once again. So you have to account for all those things. That's why we don't fill it until within an hour of serving it. Brown butter, if you think like an ingredient, brown butter is butter that has had all of the moisture cooked off. So if you don't have in the dough the moisture that you counted on, you will not even have a proper dough. It won't work. It's not about it being dense or not good or anything. You've lost so much water, 16% water, that it's profoundly a different recipe. So what you want to do is figure out using a scale and math and how much fat lives in the butter brand that you use. And you're going to have to do recipe development, because I think the flavor of the brown butter would be wonderful. But you have to account for that water, and it can't be an estimate. If you do estimation and whatever, you aren't going to get this, okay? So then once and then maybe I'll cut open the profiterole. So this is how the profiterole will be cut. The profiterole, I'm going to cut around the bottom because I'm going to use this as the top and the bottom to hold the ice cream. So I'm going to turn it on its side and cut at where the little mushroom cap occurs. Okay, and that is what it looks like. And this is going to have ice cream in the middle of it and then a little something on the top. And it's sweet and lovely. And look at that beautiful brown bottom. Love it. Okay, so these are my pretty friends here. And then I'm going to show you how you fill these, because this is a primary job if you work in a pastry shop. Knowing how to manage finished product through the flow of food is key. Oh my gosh, the crunch is so amazing and it's so pretty. And if you go back and look at my Milkweed Inn videos, when I was up at the Milkweed Inn with Chef Lane Regan, Chef used a chaga mushroom and made a craquelin. So when it cracked, the whole crunchy parts were dark brown. So you can take the craquelin and make it with molasses, brown sugar, cinnamon spices, anything you want. I was going to do a bunch of stuff with matcha, but I already had so much stuff I didn't know. But like matcha green would be gorge. There's just so many things you can do. I'm gonna do the Gougères. And one of the things when I have trained people how to do this is that they feel like if they squeeze the filling in, they'll be done when they're done. But you are only done when you can feel that you're done. Just because the filling is coming out the backside, it doesn't mean it's full. You have to feel and imagine that when you pipe the filling in, that it has displaced all these walls and it is completely full. Okay, so that's what we're gonna try to do. And so you don't wanna go crazy with the size, and it doesn't need to be perfect, but it should be small enough that you can get the next size in there. So this is a 4. So I would do a 4 to make the hole, and I like to use the star tip because it acts like a cutter. You can kind of twist it and get it through. And then one size bigger or whatever you need to get your filling inside is what you're gonna do. I did a larger tip for my savory filling because I'm concerned, even though I chopped up the scallions and the herbs, that they won't go through there. So I'm gonna take this and I'm going to go on the bottom, right in the center, and I'm just gonna push it through, okay? That is going to be enough that you can get inside there. Sometimes it's gonna collect in the tip, and then you could turn it upside down. And if you make a whole tray of these, you'll turn them upside down on your tray, just like I am, because every stage you wanna go through the whole thing like an assembly line, left to right, top to bottom. This way you keep in order where you are. It's going to go through, and it's giving a little because I can feel a piece of cheese. So I'm going to move it and I'm going to make room, okay? And then I'll just do 4. No, actually I'm going to do 5 because I like the odd numbers. So can you see the hole there? All ready for my filling. I'm going to grab one more. One more. I like to do 5. And I'm going to put these on a plate. And these are savory, so I'm not going to be adding sucrage or powdered sugar or anything. So let me show you what I'm working with here. This is the savory filling. And it's completely pipeable. See that? I mean, you could make a savory cake with this. And it's really delicious. And I love lemon, really brightens things up. Always gives the palate a little bit of a rest against all the fat and the rich flavors and textures that live on your tongue after you've eaten a lot of rich fatty foods. And the lemon kind of helps break that up. Thank you. It is yummy. So here's what we do. We pick one up, and I should have gloves on, but I'm not sharing these with anybody. But I want to say that because it's very important that if you are taking 1 penny for your food, or you are serving it to anybody, you should have a freshly washed hand and a glove. That wouldn't make it in your house. I know, I'm gonna eat some of these. All right, so I'm gonna push this in, and then I'm going to gently squeeze. But you can almost close your eyes. I can see it expanding. And sometimes it'll come out the top. But there we go. Still doesn't feel 100% full. There we go. Got a little expansion, okay? I'm gonna cut this in half so you can see. And I'm gonna put it on the plate. And then I like to keep my tip clean because it fits in better. And every time you start with a clean tip, you're gonna end up with a cleaner product. And then I'm gonna push this in the hole and I'm gonna squeeze. You can move it around a little bit, make sure you're getting into all the edges. Can you see it expanding a little? I feel like more can fit in here, and you can feel the weight. You want it to have really good weight. So don't assume, so you feel it and you know how much can fit in there. And like I said, you can twist this around, make sure you get into all the nooks and crannies. Oh, there we go. And that's the bottom, and it's nice and full. And I'm going to put it on the plate, wipe off the tip. And these can go in the fridge for up to an hour before you serve them. And if you baked the puffs yesterday, you can throw them into the oven for 5 minutes to refresh them before you fill them. And that'll dry them out. It'll bring out the flavor and refresh them. Okay, so this one, I pushed a little harder so you could see, and the filling came out the sides. Oh well, that's just more filling for me. And then I like keeping this clean. The minute you get this messy, you can't handle it. It makes the whole bag slippery, and it's just a messy way of working. So I stop as often as is necessary to clean up my bag. You twist it, holding this part of your hand. This is what is holding my bag. I twist, and then I pull it in there tight. This is off. Now this could be a cheese you make that's runnier. So this is gonna hold it in, and when you turn it over, that's gonna help it flow out. But you could also make very finely chopped mushroom filling, any savory fillings with meat, shredded things, chopped things, as long as they're small enough to fit through your pastry tip. I literally put goat cheese on the paddle warm. It was already room temperature. I added the zest of 1 lemon, and it was one of those long logs. And then I added salt, pepper, and then I beat it until it got very soft. But there was no air in it really because it's all fat, right? So I added a little bit of lemon juice, just half of a lemon's worth of lemon juice, and that aerated it and lightened it up. But I tasted it because I had the urge to add more, and it was already very lemony. So I threw a dash of Tabasco, because I love Tabasco, to balance it all out. And then once I aerated it a tiny bit, I added the chopped parsley and scallions. You can use green onions. I use green onions. And I just want to make sure it fits through the hole. And then I tasted it and I liked it. I added a little more pepper and stuff like that. But no, I didn't make a recipe. I just winged it. But there are a lot online you can look up. But you just need to make sure if you're doing something you know, like a mushroom or something, you have to cut it small enough to fit. Just make sure you do that. Okay, so there's this guy. It's kind of popping out the side, but I'm okay with that. So I'm going to put that there. And this is going to go back into my little container. And as I've said, these work great because I can do that, and then I can put today's date on here. And actually I have to put yesterday's because, no, I made it today. I made it today. So this is going to go in the cooler and I'm good to go. Another number million why I like deli cups. Next we're going to do the ice cream. Okay, so I'm going to cut one of these in half, but picture this on a salad that you serve. That you can do this in gigantic production with, you own a catering company, you can make thousands of these, like just like that. And it's so fast when you have a sheet tray full of them. Someone just bang it out right in the fridge and then to the table. Any flavor profile you want, you can add the flavor to the cream to make the Gougère. You can add the flavor to the filling, and you can add a topping if you want. You can do a savory craquelin. I mean, you can use dehydrated cheese. There are so many things you do. It's insane. So you have to think creatively and look at what you're adding to your final product. And you're always going to look at flavor, color, texture, and temperature. So these are going to be sort of like dry and crunchy with a soft inner filling. You know, they're like bread, although they do have a really nice, lovely, shiny color. Okay. On the side of a salad, I mean, you could put it with dinner. You could do it with soup. Like, it literally doesn't matter. You could go crazy. It's so delicious. All right, so I'm going to cut one in half. I want to get one that I feel like will hold up. My serrated knife makes it a little more possible. Okay, oh, it looks good. Looks very good. I don't have a lot of savory stuff in my cooler because I don't cook over here. This is not where I live. But the savory stuff does interact with your sweet stuff, so you have to be careful if whatever you're storing has a lot of flavor, odor, because it's going to impart itself onto all your other stuff. Let me clean this up. Here we go. I think this is exciting. So this is what it looks like on the inside. Could you die? And look, you can still see all the layers there. There's still so much going on with this. I'll eat them later, but it smells great, looks great. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's a Gougère. And whether you own a business, you're a professional, you're a caterer, or you're just trying to come up with something, thank you. You're trying to come up with something new. You're going crazy at the holidays or for whatever you've got coming up. This can all be done in stages. And if you didn't see it all, you can go back and look at my videos. You can go to YouTube and re-watch the live from Wednesday, because these pâte à choux, it's like it's built in that you can stage it out from making the dough one day, piping it the next, freezing it, or you can do it all in one day, depending on what you want to have happen. And the shapes are infinite. They're infinite. And this is just one. That's the Gougère. That's the savory. So I'm done with this. Now I'm going to do the profiterole, which I just love. How are you guys doing? You're drooling? I'm drooling too. You know how hard it is not to eat it? It's so hard not to eat. I know that sounds silly, but it is. So I'm going to put the profiteroles on here. And I'm going to take hot water and the caramel and my ice cream scoop. I don't think I need it quite as hot as boiling, but I'm going to put that there. I don't know what size spoon I'm going to end up using, but let me get the ice cream. I couldn't help myself. I cut into this I dug into that last night. This is the Tres Leches. I love ice cream, and I allow myself to have it whenever I get the craving. All right, so let me see. What I'm going to do is pick two that have a really nice dome. I want to get ones that have a really nice dome. And in fact, the one I cut actually will work very well. So I have this guy. I'm going to put the base on the plate, and then I'm going to cut in between this bottom crunchy part and where the top is. It's almost like a mushroom cap. So I'm going to cut there, and this is beautiful. You can see it's got a lovely interior. It's got a little moisture, but not a lot, and it's not gonna, you know, obviously it's got nice structure. So this is gonna go here. I mean, this is just, and the thing about this too is that a lot of people make pâte choux and a lot of people bake and a lot of, I know, but when you do these sorts of things that are just a little more, people go crazy. They go crazy because fewer and fewer people are just taking the time to do this. So this is what the ice cream looks like. It's got a lot of like caramel and cake-like stuff. It's got cookies, vanilla cookies. All right, so I'm gonna put these here. And I was wondering which size scoop to use. And again, I don't look at the numbers. I just go and say, which size do I want this to be? So which do you guys think? This is what it'll look like. I think the red's a little better, but I'm gonna go bigger. I'm gonna go bigger. So I'm gonna not do the red one. And this is going to go into the hot water like this, just like they do at an ice cream shop. I did a couple, I always do stories now. So I'm gonna take the ice cream, place it right there, rinse off, and then get another one. And obviously this should be served right before. But I've had the ice cream in the refrigerator for 10 minutes while it tempered. And I'm probably going to be eating this ice cream later, so I'm going to put it back in the freezer. I think I'm going to have some good snacks tonight. Okay, so then I'm going to place the top on here. Yep, I could have made it even bigger. You see that? And the cute thing about this plate is they're not even going to see the middle finger until it gets eaten. So then I have this homemade caramel that I make, and I've done videos on it before. It's a wonderful recipe because if you're afraid of caramelizing sugar, it uses quite a bit of water. So that gives you a bit of an insurance policy. So you can see how it looks. Yum, yum. So delicious. And I just, once I make it, I pour it into containers hot and then turn it upside down to get a little vacuum seal, but then I store it in the refrigerator. So I could either use a little spoon or a big one, and I feel like the big one is overkill. So I'm gonna go with the smaller one, but I need a dry towel because I'm gonna put this into the hot water to warm up the spoon. A trick that professionals will do is have two in really hot water so that you can then put the one you just used in while you use the fresh guy. So I'm going to take all the water off, and I'm going to give it a nice dollop. Dry off the spoon and give it a nice dollop. Okay, take a little myself. So good. Crazy good. Okay, I don't think I need that again. Let's look at it up close. Let me clean up the plate. Now, I don't think it's a bad idea to add a few berries on here, do you? 1, 2. I'll put 2 whole and then I'll slice 1 because I think the inside of blackberries is so pretty. I could even put one right there. Now there's no blackberry in the profiterole or the dessert. So, you know, when you are adding garnish or you're adding flavor, you want to make sure that it's reflected someplace else. So that's kind of haphazard. But let's say it was a blackberry bramble ice cream. It'd be nice to have the blackberries on top. Now, again, a lot of people do not like powdered sugar on desserts, but if you wanted to do the lightest dusting, there are a lot of chefs who hate it. But how can you hate this? How can you hate that? I mean, could you die? You just saw how easy this is. Now, I get pâte choux not super easy. I get it. But once it's baked, like, it's easy. Check that out. And I am an artisan bakery, I don't really do a lot of plated dessert. I love it, but I don't do a lot. And I just think, wow, I mean, you could do this in a coffee shop. You don't need to have tons of equipment. You need a teeny tiny little oven. Isn't that, yeah, hi. Thank you. I like it. But I'll tell you, yeah, there are chefs who are just like, ugh, it's old, whatever. Whatever you want to do, you do. But look how the caramel is dripping. Oh. So then how do you eat it? I don't know. Smush it up with a fork and a knife or use it with a spoon. I could pick it up and eat it. I could take it apart. But anyway, gorge. I think I'm going to stick this in the freezer. And maybe I'll pick at it later. You pick it up, you make a mess. I'm going to show you how you properly eat a cream puff. So maybe you can apply some of that information. I learned in Wisconsin, they have a big cream puff stand at the Wisconsin State Fair. And they show you how to, because they make these giant cream puffs. And it's this stand that's open for 2 weeks out of the year, and it's fresh, real cream. It's amazing. Next week we are doing a pavlova, but typically you guys pick the recipe that I do, and I do one foundational recipe a week, and then I build all the other recipes around it. I know, I love the caramel. Okay, I'm putting this in the freezer. All right, so we have to do something else. I say we do, let's see, I can look at my list. All right, so I think we need to do the choux. We need to fill up our little choux. And if you make a choux smaller, you get a choux cat. So this is a nice size, and I'm gonna make a cream puff for you guys. But you could make it a lot smaller, more like this, but still sweet, and that's a choux cat. Okay, so I'm gonna do a cream puff, and I'm gonna show you how I do it. Let me get the whipped cream. This is my chantilly cream. Chantilly cream is just sweetened whipped cream. And look how brown it looks, right? It looks brown. That is just because I use my vanilla sugar. My vanilla sugar, I save all my spent vanilla beans through the years, and I mean years. After I use them, even if I've used them up in that recipe, I rinse them off and I let them dry. Then I add them to sugar, and eventually I grind it all up and then sift it out. You can tell how many almond pod or vanilla pods went into that. So now what I need, I'm going to use a star tip for looks. I think that tip, oh, I don't think it's too big. I'm gonna put this tip, it's an open star tip, into this little bitty bag. Actually, I'm gonna use a bigger bag because I feel like whipped cream I could use a lot. We wanna make this really luxurious. So I'm gonna put this in here. You have to be careful with some of these star tips because they're really sharp and they can rip a hole in your bag. Put the tip in, cut around it, get in the habit, stick it in your pocket. You don't want plastic in your food. And then I am going to, this is my whipped cream, fill up, let me get a spatula. My gosh, it's so good. Sticking this in here, and I can fill it. Passion fruit puree from, you know, having fresh fruit around would be amazing, wouldn't it? I live in a cold climate, so we don't have that available. And quite frankly, I don't live near a big city, so I don't get a lot of fancy foods. I have to drive 45 minutes to get to a Whole Foods. Oh, so nice. I know I have a neighbor who will buy me Mexican vanilla when she goes to Mexico, and she just leaves it on my stair as this gift, and it's clear, which is fascinating. And it is the loveliest, most floral vanilla I've ever had. But honestly, we don't have much of anything around here in terms of fresh fruit. And even in the summer, because we go to the farmer's market every Saturday, even getting berries is really hard, and they're very expensive. So you take your vanilla beans, okay? And I know I have a lot of these, and I know they're expensive, but I've had many of these, this whole stash, for years. You just need to keep them moist, and I might need to spritz them. But this is a vanilla bean. And it should be pliable. These things are really expensive. When you use it, oftentimes you slice it in half and you put it into a cream, or you steep it, or you scrape out the seeds. That spent pod that is left, you just rinse it off and then stick it somewhere to dry, near your oven, someplace warm. And then once it gets there, you have a little container, and then I'll show you. You have a container like this. I decided to do powdered sugar. I was like, why don't I make vanilla powdered sugar? So those are all vanilla bean pods, but they're dry. Watch. Crunchy, crunchy, okay? This is a fresh one that hasn't been used. It's pliable. But once you use it and then you dry it out, you just throw it in with the sugar. And then someday I'll take this and I'll put it in a food processor, grind it up, and then sift out the big chunks. And I will have the most amazing vanilla powdered sugar. And that is exactly what my vanilla sugar is. And this has a lot of vanilla. It's very strong. I absolutely love it. So this guy is, and I just need to spray it with a little bit of water and then close this up. And I keep it out of the sun so it doesn't dry out. All right, so cream puffs. So in Wisconsin, you go to the state fair, you get a cream puff that's, I don't even know, 4 inches in diameter, huge, with whipped cream inside. So the whole thing's this big, and everyone says, how do you eat this? And they take the bite, but I'm gonna show you how you're supposed to. Okay, so I'm gonna take the cream puff, and I am going to not cut it in half, but a little closer to the bottom, but not all the way. And then I have my nice openness in here. And I'm gonna put it in this little glass bowl, but I'm gonna take a star tip. And I'm gonna make a puff and then put the top on, but I'm gonna make enough so that it's extravagant and it's full. So so I'm gonna do 2 because I want you to see the difference in how I would pipe it. So let me cut this one also. So this is a cream puff. This is just my choux with whipped cream, chantilly cream with vanilla. So it's sweetened. Here we go. So you can either do this, where you go around and make it kind of pretty like that, or you could just squish it in. Okay? And again, this fits very well into this deli cup where it will stay upright and out of my way. Genius. Okay. So I put the top on here, and you put the top on there. I could even do more. Some people will take this and do just a little more on top. Make it pretty. Okay. And sucrage. That's just very pretty. Okay. And to serve it if I want, I could just put it in this little bowl. Looks nice. I'm going to show you how to eat it. I mean, a bowl's a little overkill with the cream puff, but you can see the edges. I could throw berries into here and it becomes a really nice added treat. Okay. A little caramel sauce wouldn't hurt anybody either. All right, so I'll put that right there. And then here is how you eat a cream puff. All right, so instead of biting into it and smushing it, you want to use the top to scrape off some of the cream, and that is how you eat it. And then it goes on a plate. That's it. I'm gonna put this in a deli cup for later, because I will be eating this later. My deli cups are the best snack cups in the world. I'm going to show you real quick something I didn't talk about earlier. So this is a bag of all the stuff that I baked off the other day. All I need to do, and it is, you should know this, when you bake your choux, one tray gets one size and one shape. If you start mixing it up like this, you're not going to be able to get a good bake. One thing's going to bake really fast, and the big thing's going to take a lot longer. But when you refresh, I don't think it's as important. So this is, you know, the profiterole it's just a little moist from the cooler. So these can go into the oven at 350, kind of until you smell them, but 5 minutes. It could be, depending on your oven. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Oh, here we go. All right, so here's the cremeux. Cremeux is very fun. I'm gonna stick this in the refrigerator as well. All right. Cremeux is, and you can make a cremeux, it's kind of like a mousse. It means creamy, But this is stabilized with gelatin. And I like, if you don't have problems with gelatin, and you can get pork gelatin or beef gelatin. And I did a video on how to make this. And I use my hand blender. But if you can at all see how creamy it is the silkiest, creamiest thing around, and shiny and wonderful. And I'm gonna fill the, I'm gonna fill a puff, and I'm gonna fill an eclair. Yeah, so that's about it. But this is about how thick it is. So that's a nice mousse-like consistency to go inside the puff. Because I want to tell you that when you are thinking about filling these and topping them and adjusting the recipe and whatever, remember that whatever you do, if you adjust this recipe to make it tougher, use a different maybe AP flour, something like that, when you go to bite into it, you're going to get a different experience than if you have a more tender one. You know, so that's why, where are my Gougères? Oh, here they are. So if this is a different texture than the filling, you're not going to get a nice bite. So when you're looking at flavor, recipe, filling, and how it feels on the tooth, that also plays a big part of it. So when you're looking at a recipe and how do you make something and what are you going for, you're looking at the finished product, not just this, but how are you going to finish this and how do you want it to play on the plate, on the palate, on the tooth. All those things are really important. So I'm going to put the cremeux into, I think I'll use a large bag for this one too. I think it just makes my life a little bit easier. And I'm going to show you, so here are my big bags. So we're going to use the little number 4 star tip to poke a hole in the back, but we need a number 5 to go with the filling. I'll use this one. Every brand has a different size number, so I'll show you what size I'm doing and you will be able to see. So this needs to go all the way to the bottom. Take the end off. Goes in my pocket. But I read all the comments that you guys make, and I am going to go back and find out what you're talking about. We are filling pâte choux that I made on Wednesday with all kinds of different fillings. And if you missed it, you can catch all of it on YouTube. So this is my cremeux, and it's going to go in a bag with a round tip. Now I could have put this directly into a bag, but if you are making this and you're selling it, you might want to hand blend it every time you use it. It makes it extra creamy. Extra smooth. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This is going to stay here. And this cremeux is going to fall out the bottom way easier than anything else I've done, you see? So that is where the off comes in. Okay? I'm going to twist this and then turn it off. And to keep it off, I'm going to put it in here like that. And then it'll just stand up and be there. Okay? And I'm going to take a couple of nice eclairs and I'm going to cut one in half and show you what it looks like. I'll take you one that's not as perfect because I want to use the bigger ones to fill. So I'm going to cut this way. This is an eclair. I used an egg wash, which helps it get big. I could have put a rectangle of craquelin on here, but I did not. It's just egg wash, and you fill it and then you dip it. So if I had a glaze, I could fill it up and I would do assembly style, poke holes in all of them, and then fill them and then dip them, and then they're ready to go. That's an eclair. It's kind of a small one. Okay, so I'm going to cut this guy in half because he's not perfect. And there's one that's cracked. And if my filling comes out the cracked part, who cares? Who cares? And if you cover it with a really shiny chocolate glaze or even a ganache, it's going to look really pretty. Okay, so I'm going to show you the wow. That's what it looks like. Look at that. Look at the exterior, the thickness of the crust, the openness, the structure of the walls, and how they're dried out enough to stay nice and strong and hold up to being cut and all that, but not so strong that they're not still soft and delicious. Yes, this is an eclair. So I'm gonna fill the eclair. I was just cutting it in half to show you what it looks like on the inside. And all of our choux ingredients are hollow. That's the beauty of the pâte choux. This is the Savory. And then we have the Profiterole, which has a craquelant crust. They are, isn't that amazing? I mean, haven't you ever wondered how they fill them? Like, how do you get it in there? Because when you look at a cake or a cupcake, I mean, short of people cut out the top of a cupcake to fill it. And you know, I'm not a huge fan of cupcakes. I'd rather have an entremet or some little mini dessert that's been given a lot of thought. Ooh, lavender would be lovely. And you can, when you make the pâte choux, you can steep the lavender in the cream, the milk, before you make the pâte choux, or you can do it in the filling, or you can pair, like what goes well with lavender, like chocolate. So you could do a lavender pastry cream or cremeux, and then you could top it with a beautiful shiny mirror glaze. I'm gonna take my best, because you want volume, because you want to really fill them up. So I'm gonna do 3 puffs, and I'm going to do 3 eclairs. And I'm gonna fill them with cremeux. Okay, here we go. And this is what they look like before I poke holes in them. And with the puff, you're only gonna do 1 hole. I'm gonna take the bottom and put this in the center and then push it through. And that's all I have to do. That's gonna go upside down. And if it doesn't go through on its own, just twist it, because that sharp little star tip will make a nice hole in the center. And there's my hole. All right, so for the eclair, this is so cool. You're gonna do 2. 1 on this end and 1 on this end. That way you can fill the whole eclair all the way across. And I would argue that it's easier to do the puff. So if you're practicing and playing, start with a larger, easier item and work your way into smaller, more detailed work. That is how you will master it a little bit easier. And there's the bottom. And this is soft. Do you see that? It's flexible. This is not like over baked. It's a wonderful bake. So I'm going to stick this down the center in the back, and I'm ready to fill it, okay? Yeah, I think anytime you come up with your signature flavor, and that's where the flavor Bible comes in. Pick your main flavor and then build a dessert around it. Your main flavor is lavender. It's not really going to color your pastry cream, right? But if you look at the lavender, it's not going to be lavender color. It's going to be lavender flavor with a pastry cream color, let's say. So if you want to bring in complementary colors, you might end up doing a mirror glaze that has maybe a little food coloring in it. So it's like a pretty lavender. And then you do some blueberries. So that's blue. And then maybe you do a little bit of chantilly cream on the side that's got vanilla beans. So you've got the brown. So you're thinking about the whole thing together, how it looks, how the flavors complement each other, and you know, the textures you want to get always. Creamy, crunchy, some is tender, some is brittle. Like, you need to build an experience, not just a cream puff, but an experience, you know, with the profiterole. Like and maybe the caramel will be warmed up. So you have a cold ice cream with a crunchy profiterole and then a warm caramel sauce on the top with some cold berries. Like, I think that'd be lovely. Well, it's not going to get soggy because you have to fill this within an hour of serving it. So you cannot do this part way in advance. You can make it and freeze it and bake it and all that, but you cannot fill it way in advance. It's a gigantic bag of cremeux, but I can manage it, but I do not recommend you doing this large. You want to do a lot less, just easier to handle. So I got out of my zone there a little bit. Okay, I'll show it to you again. So this, you need to stick the tip all the way in and then begin squeezing, but you're going, and I don't have gloves on because I'm not serving these, but if I were getting money for these or serving them to anybody, I would have gloves on after I washed my hands. So I'm gonna squeeze this cremeux into here, and I'm gonna move this around so I can get into every crevice, and I'm starting to feel it come out the back. But it's still not all the way in there. So I'm going to go ahead and fill it up a little more. You're gonna look for weight, and now it feels heavy, okay? I'm gonna put that upside down. And wiping your tip in between can be very helpful in keeping things neat. But you wanna stick the tip through and then turn it over and fill. And you don't need to squeeze hard because it's all gonna be coming out, and you wanna go slow because your mind is you're feeling, and I can see it coming out the edge a little. Okay, and then that will go down. So these could go on a plate or a tray with parchment and then into the cooler for up to 1 hour, and it will firm up a little bit. Like this will get a little soggier, but then you'll firm up. So this one's a little odd shaped. That's okay. But I want to imagine the inside, and you guys saw the inside, and I want to imagine that I'm filling the whole thing until it's, oops, see, it came out the top. So that's not good. I'll put that one there. Wipe off the tip, and I'm going to grab another one really, really quick. So this cremeux could not be piped like this, but in theory, I could mix the cremeux with a French buttercream, and that would be really nice. So this is offset. This fell to the side, so that made a weak structure here, and that's why it popped out the edge. So I'll try to grab one that's a little rounder. I'll do this guy. It's a little more evenly spaced, and then I will start fresh. And then I'll have 3. I like to have an uneven number. It looks better. The eye and people like uneven things. So I'm going to stick this in, and then I'm going to fill it. I'm not going to push too hard or go too fast, but I want to imagine that I'm filling every bit of this cream puff. And that feels full. Okay, now I'm going to do the éclair. And these are a little harder to do. First of all, in the United States, and I teach and proctor sanitation for ServSafe, they're required. If you touch ready-to-eat food, you need to be touching them with a clean hand and a glove. And if you don't use the gloves properly, if you're touching money and doing other tasks, those gloves don't work. They're single-use gloves. And if I don't wear gloves and I am selling you food, I am signaling to you that I probably scratch my head and then don't wash my hands. I probably do a lot of things I shouldn't be doing. And I know this sets a lot of people off and they think it's a debate, but number one, it's the rule. And number two, it's a best practice. And I'm studying for my ServSafe exam right now. And the number one way to prevent food-borne illness outbreaks is hand washing and avoiding cross-contamination. Cross-contamination is when I scratch my face and then I pick up food. I might have bacteria on my face. It's now in the food. I go to the bathroom, I don't wash my hands, or I rinse them for 2 seconds and I don't wash them properly, then I touch this. It's not about telling the public that you're using gloves and they should just assume. You need to see that they're using the gloves properly. And that's all I'm talking about. And it's not a debate. It is in the ServSafe book. It is how it's supposed to be done. And I operate on best practices. And I am hardened to the argument because I've had hundreds of students want to argue about how people do it in real life. If you see people, and I watched a lady at a coffee shop the other day ring people up, go over, pick up a bagel, cut it, make it, and then go take money and then go. She didn't care. And it wasn't just the gloves. It was that she wasn't even washing her hands. There's no awareness. So you really need to think about these things because if you get the food safety news like I do every day, you'll see it's a big deal. People get sick, they die. There's a listeria outbreak right now that's killing people. Salmonella is rampant. I could go on and on, okay? But sometimes when people study for the ServSafe exam, they get like this. And so I think you guys should all take a ServSafe exam. What a great experience. Yeah, in healthcare. Yes. And if someone walks up to you, they want to take your blood or clean your teeth, and you're not even supposed to use sanitizer unless you've washed your hands. So yeah, so you got to be careful. We all need to stay safe out there, and especially if you're working with young children in a hospital setting with elderly people or immune compromised. So, if you have a family member that's going through chemo or anything like that, you just need to be really careful. Okay, here we are. So I'm going to put this into the hole, and I'm going to fill this end of the éclair, and I'm going to move the tip around. And I don't want to go too fast. I want to be very slow. And oops, it's coming out the back. All right. And what you can do with the extra, oftentimes people would just do this. and they'll have a plate and they'll put the extra over there. But I think my tip for these eclairs is a little too big. But I'm going to cut this in half so you can kind of see what happens on the inside. So then I would wipe off the excess. And I mean, do you know that the people who cut your hair, when they get licensed, they aren't getting licensed to learn how to cut your hair. They're actually getting licensed for all the sanitation things that go on in a hair salon. I made this stencil the other day, but I'm just going to reuse it as parchment. But if I were serving these to friends, I would have these filled, and then I would place them on a tray, and then I would put these in the refrigerator for them to firm up. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to cut through them for you. That creme mousse, the only reason it's that liquidy is because I did hand blend it. It does firm up in the refrigerator if it's left alone. All right. So let's take a look at what we've done, and then we'll talk. So here is my tray of goodies, and this, oh, they're over here. This is what a Gougère looks like before it's filled, and this looks like a Gougère when it's been filled. Thank you. So this is delish on a plate, lovely. You could have this at a party. People would chow these up. The Paris-Brest. You can do different designs of the piping. You could do any number of different fillings. You could do a little sucrage or berries. The Profiterole. Oh no, this is the cream puff. So that is just a pâte de choux. So this is a cream puff with chantilly cream. And the cream puff looks like that when you cut it in half. This is just puff paste. No, this is pâte de choux, which is a puff. They call it a puff. This is an éclair on the inside. And what else do we do? I think that's it. So cracking things like this open and taking a look at what they look like in the inside is really fun. And you know, if you make a Gougère and you don't want to fill it, this goldenness on the bottom is all cheese that baked. So you could just serve the Gougère. It doesn't need to have cheese on the inside of it. It could just be like a nice little snack. Basically, you could call it a cheese puff. Okay. So I'm going to move these and then we're going to chat. And clean up just a little bit. You guys know I'm going to eat all this as soon as we get off. Okay. Oh, I know. That's the thing. These are so beautifully made. Do you think you could make one large Paris-Brest for Easter? Oh my gosh, that would be so fun. Absolutely. You just want to use a little bigger tip to get a nice lift so that it's not super flat. And you're going to want to probably bake it from frozen so it can get a nice puff. Baking from frozen. Okay, so if you're going to make it for the holidays, you don't want to be mixing up pâte de choux in the morning, do you? So you're going to make it in advance and freeze it and then bake it from frozen. That's going to build in time. But also I like it gives it like a nice puff because you're not slowly taking something that's already room temperature. You're like banging the heat, and that steam that's locked in the frozen state is really the water is gonna steam. For those of you who don't know, I do a live twice a week. Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I lecture and demo a recipe. This week is pâte de choux, and then on today, Sunday at noon, I come back and talk about it. The video from Wednesday, I edit and put on YouTube under Part 1 pâte de choux. So if you go look up The Practice of Pastry or my name, M Kathleen Meisinger, or you just Google me, Chef Kathleen, the baking club, it'll come up. There's a lot online that you should be able to find me. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but you can get to the nutshell of the lecture and the demo so that you can find out what the principles are, because they are so great and deep that one answer is not doing the whole recipe justice. So I don't want to send you down the wrong road telling you that like, oh, You always have to freeze it. You have to understand everything that goes into this. But if I were doing it for Easter, I think that's what you said you wanted to do, is that I would make it, pipe it onto a silpat, and then when you freeze it, you can just put it in a Ziploc bag and take it off the silpat. If you pipe onto parchment and want to get it in the freezer, you want to move quickly, because as the batter, the dough, begins to perspire, that water will make the parchment stick and you'll have trouble getting it off. But watch the videos. I have a ton of videos this week that I did on the pastry cream, the cremeux, and then I'm going to be uploading my French buttercream. And I never really, for these really complicated things, give you all of everything on one video. I mean, my videos are like an hour just for one part. I did one yesterday where all I did was pipe it and then freeze it. And that was like 60 minutes of video. I got down to like 2. And for tonight, the one I'm going to do tonight is I baked all of this and I videoed all of the process. So you will see exactly, and I show you with my camera how I look at it, I assess it, I change the temperature, I set the timer, and when I pull it out. So you'll be able to see the whole process. So it's just like a lot of little steps, but then on the day of, you can pull that frozen choux out of the freezer, straight into your oven, and then right before you serve it, you've got your pre-made fillings that are in pastry bags. Do I have anything here? That you just pipe on and throw a bunch of berries and stuff on. So this is just a fabulous foundational recipe that you can do. And I think for Easter, it'd be wonderful. And if you're having a buffet, you can have a beautiful tiered stand with just all the puffs on there, and you can store them in the refrigerator for up to an hour. So in theory, you could have your puffs on one side and your chantilly in a pastry bag, and then do 20 of them. And then as they go quick, then you can do 20 more and have them in the cooler and just keep replacing them. So you have to plan a little bit and have a production schedule, but it's easy. The milk in the pâte choux, because you don't want to jump up to cream. You want to do, like, ideally for what I did it for eating, half water, half milk. The milk has dairy stuff in it, right? It's got lactose, which is a sugar. It's got proteins in there, and water. The water is going to give you the moisture you need to steam and get the puff, but the proteins and the sugar are going to give you a crust, color, the Maillard reaction, and structure. They're going to help take the flour that you're using and build a nice sturdy exterior that bites through gently, like that's why we're using pastry flour. But then it's going to help brown and get gorgeous. If you were just using water, you wouldn't get those effects, although you do get some of that obviously from the eggs and from the butter. So this recipe is heavily reliant on steam as the leavener, and then the dairy proteins and sugars that are in your batter, your dough, to give you the color. This week, we have decided to do a pavlova. And we're doing that because it's perfect for Passover, but I also think that pavlovas are really popular all over the world, but in the United States, we're just not as familiar, and they can be a little intimidating. And I love doing meringues, and I've done a ton of videos on the meringues, but I'm going to get that recipe up tonight because I'm ready to go, and I'm gonna pick the optimum meringue for making a pavlova. You know what I'm looking for? Suggestions for toppings other than the fruit and the lemon cream and the obvious. Like, is there something you could tell me to do? Oh, you found me through the meringue mushrooms. I just think they're so adorable and they're so easy to do. The method that I am going to teach you, I didn't invent. I didn't make it up. It is funny because the attributes that make me a good pastry practitioner are the same ones that would have made me maybe a good organizer. And I have myself gone in and restructured and reorganized professional pastry kitchens pretty much everywhere I've ever worked, and I would love to do it for a living. I think it'd be fun to have a show where I went into people's pastry shops or bakeries that were like a disaster, and I helped them get it all back together, because it's not hard to do. And sometimes my students, I would say to my students, well, I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll do it on the weekend. And they're like, no, we want to help you. And I'm like, no, we need to be learning and whatever. And they're like, no, we want to get the kitchen So I'd be like, all right, let's get everything off and into the middle. Let's get rid of this. We'll only put back what we need, clean everything. And it would be like a 1 day, 4-hour project, and the whole kitchen would be completely changed. It was amazing. So the meringue, I am going to be folding in 10x. 10x is powdered sugar that's been milled 10 times and has 3 to 5% cornstarch in it. And I call things by their proper names because it makes it easier. I don't do it to be weird. And I always say, like, I didn't make this up. I was taught that way, so I do it how I'm taught, and I share with you, no gatekeeping, literally how I learned to do things from the very best chefs in the world, French pastry chefs that are amazing, and others who are incredible and well-trained. And I absorbed it all. I took really great notes, and I share everything that I know with you after having taught for over 10 years, over 12 years at the college level. So I'm going to show you how to do a pavlova. Does that mean it's the only way to do it? No. It just means that I am giving you the information behind the best practices, and then that's the why, and then you get to determine how much you want to implement in your own kitchen. Because I might tell you that a best practice is to clean your bowls and your whip with vinegar, and you don't have to do that. But I'm going to tell you it because it is a best practice, and I operate at the top of my abilities, and I encourage you to do the same and to build really good practices, good muscle memory, and then to look at everything we're doing, not from your point of view and what you want to have happen, but what the ingredients do, what they need, what they can and cannot do, and what they do to each other. This is what I'm offering you, because ultimately, I am not building a practice for you where you need to constantly check in with recipe developers and check in with chefs. I am helping you build the knowledge that you need so that you can troubleshoot and you can connect the dots. And that requires that you partake. So there are a lot of questions that I get asked, and sometimes I just, as a teacher, I turn it back around on you and say, oh, thank you. My Substack has all my written information. And so I do these videos. I do lives twice a week. Then I turn those into videos, and I do extra videos on TikTok. On Substack, I do written work that supports the subject. This week, the subject is pâte à choux. Next week, the subject is a simple meringue made into a pavlova. So whatever that means, all the accoutrement, all the method, the ingredient function, that is going to be a package that I offer to you for free. You can get it here, YouTube, or Substack. And the reason I think it's great to do one recipe at a time is because we can go deep. Because when I do my videos, they are very surface. And even doing a recipe with instruction one time isn't enough. You have to fail. You have to make mistakes. You have to encounter situations that you need to problem solve, connect the information, and do something about it. So that's kind of how I teach. And so this coming week on Wednesday, all right, no, I'm going to start with Sunday. So for the next week, we are doing the pavlova, a simple meringue where I will drop the recipe into my link tree tonight. On Wednesday, I will come back at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will demo and tell you everything I know about making a simple meringue. We will make it into a pavlova, and I will get it in the oven. On Sunday, I will come back. I will show you the results of everything that we made, how to top it, ingredients and recipes that go along with it. Think about presentation, plating, how to parse out your timing in production, and that's what I do. So that is the POP. I think that developing recipes is what all of your goals should be, because you no longer want to have to open a book or a recipe and have no clue why it worked or didn't work. In fact, you want to get to the point where you see a recipe and you kind of know. You know what the red flags are, you know what looks good and what doesn't. If you do vegan or gluten-free recipe, you already know you're a recipe developer, because when you take out an egg, you have to think like an egg. What is the egg doing, and what am I going to lose? And then what is this other ingredient going to give me that's going to replace the egg? That's recipe development. I'm not teaching you how to do a recipe. I'm teaching you how to think like an ingredient and to approach every recipe with critical thought. And then I'm asking you to diagram that recipe out the way that works for you. Not the way it works for me, because I diagram my recipes out the way I like them, but I want you to diagram out the method the way you like them. Then you're going to scale everything in advance and make labels. And then when you get ready to sit there and do it, you're going to have your recipe in front of you that's on my link tree, or a recipe you're using that's been converted to grams. You're going to execute it while you take notes. And until that, whatever you're making is on the plate and being enjoyed, you're just going to keep thinking about, is it being treated the way it needs to be treated at this stage of the food production? So the flow of food is when you buy the food, how do you treat the food you purchased at the store? How do you treat it while you're scaling it, mixing it, baking it, storing it, cooling it, serving it, right? That flow of food is really important to the person who eats your bakery getting the optimum experience. And so I just really encourage everyone to think like their ingredients so they know how they're supposed to be treated. From Montreal, what's your favorite bake? Sorry, my English is bad today. Do you speak French? We went to Quebec and I have taken years of French and I just get stage fright and I can't do it. I love making things that take days. I like things that have steps and stages. And sometimes it's hard to teach online. It's hard to make a video about. But I love making puff pastry. I like a pativier. I love making these pâte choux have been amazing to make, wonderful. And I love decorating cookies and I love making cakes. I like detailed stuff for sure. What else? And you guys as a group ask such great questions. When people ask, like, do you wash the berries? Or does that need to be in the cooler? All those things are really important. I know that when I went back to school, just being able to sit in a stool while, you know, a chef demoed, and you know, at the French pastry school, those demos could last 3 hours. I just was in my element. I absolutely adored it, but not everyone can get to a pastry school. So I taught, you know, and I kind of am doing the same thing. And I hope that I can continue to connect through this space. I know we're going to be hearing from TikTok again in April and see if we're going to stay. But I am a baking and pastry arts teacher and I am teaching on TikTok. And I know to some that sounds odd, but I get to connect with so many of you. It's insane. So I'm just looking at some of the statistics. So I have made a couple of friends, first friends I've made in years, and we are meeting up at the little local watering hole. I'm going to take Lou on a quick hike and then I'm going to go have afternoon tea with a couple of women, artists, interesting people who've lived really interesting lives, and I'm excited to talk to them. So that's pâte choux week. We're all done, over and out, and then we're on to a pavlova. And if you guys have any thoughts or suggestions, please come into my DMs or into my comment section and let me know, and start watching for videos about it, and you'll get the recipe tonight on my link tree. Oh, pastry school is during the day too, so you have to quit your job or something. I mean, there are very few pastry schools that operate in the evening, and even those, it's intense if you've got kids or full-time job. And so I just like sharing, and who knows what will happen. The more you guys share this and let people know what's going on, and the more people see that it's a little bit different than just writing a recipe or showing a recipe or offering inspiration, I hope to help you solve some problems and give you some insight into how professional chefs think and how they operate. Yes, I'm gonna have a great afternoon. I hope you all do too. I hope, oh, you know what? Yeah, I came back and showed everything right. Oh, I never cut in half the guys. We will cut these in half and then I'll be done. How does that sound? And then I'm gonna go take Lou on his little hike for the day. Oh, my hair's down. Okay, everything's a mess. It's not appropriate to be in the kitchen with your hair down. Yuck, gross. Okay, so let me cut this one in half. Let me see which one feels the fullest. I want to pick a nice full one. Okay, we'll do this guy. So I'm going to slice this in half. Ooh, perfect. There you go. That's the cremeux. That could be pastry cream. It could be anything you like. Delish. And then let me show you the éclair. And the éclair is full, but it could be dipped into a glaze. Okay, so I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut this two ways. This way, you can see the filling. through the center, and then I'm gonna cut it this way. I don't know if this will even work. Yeah, it does. Okay, it worked. Look at that. Nice and even. So sometimes you need to cut things in half and find out if you're doing a good job and assess where you are and make adjustments, but that's what I did. I can't wait to eat some of this stuff. I think I'm gonna wait until I get back from my hike, eat a little bit, and then go have my tea. Your mom made cream puffs all the time, and you're saying that you are now successful. Well, I am so happy to play a part in anyone finding success in the kitchen. Thank you for telling me that. It makes me feel really, really happy. And I'm so glad. And how cool to have a mom that makes cream puffs. My mom liked to cook, but she didn't bake. That's part of the reason I got into baking, because I was like, what's the big deal? And I find it interesting. For all of you who helped moderate and get this done today, thank you, thank you. I rely on all of you so much. And I appreciate you. And I will see you throughout the week. Please let me know if you have any questions or suggestions for the pavlova. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And I will see you on Wednesday. I'll see you on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will do a gorge meringue pavlova. And for all of you experts out there, please give me some tips. I love it. I don't want any fighting about who invented it, unless it's really good-hearted and fun. Passion. I'm going to look into the passion fruit and see if I can do like a passion fruit curd or something like that. Have a great day. Bye, everybody. Thank you. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. See you on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Happy baking. Have a great day. Bye. Bye.